an extraordinary interview tonight, Prince Harry has spoken candidly about the breakdown of his relationship with his father.
The clocks inside Buckingham Palace have a way of freezing when a sovereign dies. Not in a literal sense, but within the core of institutional power where everything suddenly shifts into a rigid sequence. The exact moment a king takes his final breath, emotion is set aside and replaced by a system that has been rehearsed for decades. Every action that follows is controlled by protocol rather than grief, and for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, those first 24 hours are not quiet or reflective. Instead, they become a calculated unraveling of what remains of their connection to King Charles III. What many overlook is the role Charles has played as a structural buffer. His position has not only been emotional, but deeply tied to constitutional and financial realities. He has stood between Harry and the full institutional force of a monarchy that has not fully moved past what it views as a break in trust. Once that presence is removed, the transition is immediate and without cushioning. Power shifts to Prince William, whose approach is widely understood to be more focused on institutional clarity than personal sentiment. This raises a critical question about what changes in those first hours. The issue is not long-term consequences, but immediate impact. What unfolds is shaped by established protocols, legal mechanisms, and royal authority that activate the moment the formal notification is issued. Beneath it all sits a deeper question about permanence, specifically when distance from the institution becomes something that cannot be reversed. The first major shift occurs within the structure of royal titles. In the British system, titles function as part of a legal framework rather than simple decoration. They define access, status, and formal recognition. Upon the death of King Charles III, authority over titles transfers directly to the new sovereign. Under Charles, there was a level of deliberate ambiguity surrounding the Sussexes' status. Their Duke and Duchess titles remained, and their children were recognized as Prince and Princess following his accession. This left open the possibility, however uncertain, that relationships within the family might eventually stabilize. Under William, that ambiguity is expected to be removed. The mechanism available to him is the issuance of letters patent, a formal tool that allows the sovereign to redefine the structure of the monarchy. Through this, a clearer distinction between working royals and private individuals can be established. The practical effect would be immediate. The styles of His Royal Highness and Her Royal Highness, already not in public use, could be removed from all official contexts. This would include state documentation, formal records, and institutional listings. The implications extend beyond symbolism. The Sussexes' public and commercial identity has been closely tied to their association with the monarchy. Their media agreements, public speaking roles, and organizational work all rely to some extent on that connection. A formal reclassification as non-royal figures within the state framework would likely affect how that identity is perceived and valued in professional and public settings. The second shift involves the status of their children. When Charles became king, the established rules dating back to 1917 automatically extended Prince and Princess titles to his grandchildren. Archie and Lilibet received those titles as a result of constitutional convention rather than discretionary choice. For Harry and Meghan, these titles represented more than status. They maintained a visible link between their children and the royal lineage. However, William has consistently been associated with the idea of a more streamlined monarchy. This approach prioritizes a smaller group of actively serving royals. Within that framework, there is less justification for extending full royal status to family members who live outside the United Kingdom and do not participate in official duties. In practical terms, this could lead to a gradual redefinition of how those titles are applied. Rather than removing titles through a single formal act, the adjustment could occur through usage. If official communications no longer include royal styling, that absence begins to establish a new norm. Over time, this effectively alters status without requiring a direct revocation. In such a scenario, Archie and Lilibet could retain only courtesy titles associated with their lineage rather than active royal designation. This raises a complex issue regarding any potential challenge. From a legal standpoint, authority over royal titles rests almost entirely with the sovereign. Given Harry's decision to step back from royal duties, arguing for the continuation of those titles within a formal structure would be difficult to sustain. The third and most immediate impact relates to financial arrangements. Historically, support for members of the royal family has been connected to the Duchy of Cornwall, which generates income for the heir to the throne. During the period when Prince William held that position, the duchy produced significant surplus revenue. Some of that support extended, directly or indirectly, toward Harry's expenses during his transition away from official duties. This included costs related to security, legal matters, and operational needs. While public attention has focused on commercial income sources, there has also been a background layer of financial support linked to family structure. With the accession of a new monarch, that arrangement changes immediately. Control and direction of duchy resources shift in alignment with the line of succession, ultimately tied to Prince George as the future heir. At that point, any informal or discretionary financial support connected to Harry is no longer assumed. The new sovereign has no defined obligation to continue those arrangements. As part of the transition process, existing financial connections are likely to be reviewed and, where necessary, discontinued. This marks the point where the shift moves beyond symbolism into tangible consequence, altering not just perception, but practical realities. William has long been associated with a strict operational mindset, often described as a closed-loop approach. In simple terms, if someone is not actively contributing to the institution, they are not expected to benefit from its resources. Applied to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, that philosophy signals a clear shift. Any lingering expectation of financial linkage to the royal system effectively comes to an end, and the structure that once supported them is no longer available. The practical implications are significant. Their life in Montecito includes high-value real estate, private security arrangements that are widely estimated to cost millions annually, and ongoing legal disputes. This lifestyle was built with the assumption that some form of underlying royal financial stability would remain accessible. While Harry inherited funds from Princess Diana and the Queen Mother, those resources are finite. Without continued support mechanisms, they must rely entirely on their independent income streams. There is also a commercial dimension to consider. Their public value has always been closely tied to their association with the monarchy. As soon as that association is formally reduced through official channels, market perception adjusts. Business partners, media organizations, and audiences begin to view them differently, not as figures connected to a living royal system, but as individuals operating entirely outside of it. This recalibration can influence everything from partnerships to public engagement. The fourth major shift concerns residence in the United Kingdom. In the context of the royal family, a home is not simply a place to live. It reflects standing within the institution. Frogmore Cottage served as more than a residence for the Sussexes. It represented a continuing, if limited, link to royal life in Britain. Held under a grace and favor arrangement, it suggested that even after stepping back, there was still a place for them within the broader structure. Under Prince William as sovereign, that arrangement is subject to review. Properties on the Crown estate are typically reserved for working royals or individuals with an active formal role. As non-working members living permanently in California, Harry and Meghan do not meet those criteria. Additionally, maintaining a largely unused property carries financial and operational costs that are difficult to justify under a model focused on efficiency and public accountability. If the arrangement is formally ended, the impact is straightforward. The Sussexes would no longer have a residence tied to their royal history within the United Kingdom. Any visits, including attendance at major events, would require private accommodation. The shift is less about the property itself and more about what it represents: the removal of a physical connection to the institution. The fifth area of change involves security. Since stepping back from royal duties, Harry has pursued legal avenues to regain access to publicly funded police protection in the UK. His argument has centered on the unique risks associated with his background and public profile. While these efforts have been ongoing, the transition in monarchy alters the framework in which such decisions are made. When King Charles III was alive, there remained a degree of indirect influence tied to Harry's status as the monarch's son. With the accession of a new king, that relationship changes fundamentally. Harry is no longer in that immediate position, and he does not hold a working royal role. As a result, decisions made by the body responsible for protection assessments are likely to reflect his status as a private individual rather than a state-linked figure. In practical terms, this means that any security arrangements in the UK would need to be privately funded and managed. Private security teams operate under different legal constraints, including restrictions on carrying firearms. This creates a different operational environment, particularly during high-profile events where large crowds and intense media attention are present. The sixth shift relates to military representation and ceremonial roles. Prince Harry has a well-documented military background, including active service in Afghanistan. For him, this aspect of his life has held personal significance beyond ceremonial duties. However, within the structure of the monarchy, the right to wear military uniform at official state events is determined by the sovereign. For working royals, this is generally automatic. For those who are not in active royal service, it becomes a matter of discretion. Under a system focused on clear distinctions between roles, it is expected that non-working members would attend major ceremonial events in civilian attire. This approach was already visible during previous state occasions and would likely become standard practice moving forward. The visual contrast at such events is notable. Senior working royals appear in full ceremonial uniform, reflecting their active roles within the institution, while others attend in formal civilian dress. The distinction reinforces the broader structural divide between those who serve in an official capacity and those who do not. The seventh and more technical shift involves the role of counselors of state. This position allows designated members of the royal family to carry out certain official duties on behalf of the monarch when required. While largely procedural, it represents a formal connection to the functioning of the state. Changes in status and role within the royal framework can influence whether an individual remains part of that structure, further reducing any remaining constitutional involvement. Counselors of state are not symbolic roles, they are operational positions within the monarchy. These are the senior royals authorized to act on behalf of the sovereign when necessary, handling state papers, receiving ambassadors, and stepping into duties when the monarch is unavailable. Prince Harry remains on that list largely because of his position by birth as the son of King Charles III. His place in the line of succession keeps him technically eligible, even if his practical role has already diminished. With the transition of power to Prince William, that situation is expected to change quickly. One of the legal requirements tied to counselors of state is domicile within the United Kingdom. Harry's permanent residence in California already places him in a questionable position under that rule, but rather than leaving it open to interpretation, a formal update is likely. The expectation is that William would recommend legislative clarification to Parliament, explicitly reinforcing the residency requirement. The impact goes beyond ceremony. It formally removes Harry from any remaining constitutional function, cutting the last thread that ties him to the operational structure of the state. After that, what remains is largely symbolic. Being in the line of succession does not translate into active influence. It is closer to a formal listing than a position of authority. Without an active role, without residency, and without institutional duties, Harry's connection to the constitutional system becomes passive rather than functional. The next shift is less about law and more about visibility. In the monarchy, physical positioning carries meaning. Processions, seating arrangements, and ceremonial roles are carefully structured to reflect hierarchy. These are not random decisions, but deliberate signals of standing. As preparations begin for the protocols surrounding a monarch's death, often referred to by their operational code name, every detail is reviewed and assigned. In these settings, Harry's placement changes noticeably. He is no longer positioned within the inner circle of decision-making bodies such as the Accession Council. His role shifts from central figure to extended family member. For Meghan Markle, the distinction is even more defined. As the spouse of a non-working royal, her status aligns with that of a private individual attending official events rather than participating in them. This becomes visible in how events are structured. Processions may place them outside the main formation. Transportation arrangements may differ from those of working royals, and seating positions reflect a more distant status. These adjustments are not publicly announced but become evident through imagery and coverage. The absence of formal acknowledgement does not reduce the impact. Instead, it reinforces it through subtle but consistent presentation. Another important shift occurs within the official digital record. The royal family's website functions as more than a public-facing platform. It serves as a real-time reflection of recognized status within the institution. Following a change in reign, updates to this record are expected to align with the new structure of the monarchy. Harry and Meghan would not be removed entirely, as their historical connection remains part of the record. However, their profiles would likely be repositioned away from the section dedicated to working members. This change signals a transition from active role to acknowledged relation. Official publications, including the court circular, would also reflect this shift by limiting references to them in current contexts. In the digital age, this reclassification has broader implications. Official sources often inform how external platforms present information. Changes in status on the royal website can influence how media organizations, databases, and public records describe individuals. Over time, this shapes perception and reinforces the distinction between active and non-active roles within the monarchy. Access to institutional resources is another area where change becomes clear. The Royal Archives, along with associated collections and facilities, hold extensive records documenting the history of the House of Windsor. As a senior working royal in the past, Harry had a level of access that allowed him to reference materials connected to his family history. Under a new sovereign, that access becomes discretionary. Without a formal role, there is no requirement to extend research privileges or institutional support. This applies not only to archival materials, but also to other elements of royal infrastructure, including collections, travel arrangements, and logistical systems. The transition is not framed as punitive, but as a standard application of existing rules. The cumulative effect is a withdrawal of the support systems that once operated in the background. These systems are often invisible, but play a significant role in maintaining the daily functioning of royal life. Without them, individuals must rely entirely on private arrangements. Another structural change involves the administrative presence once maintained in the United Kingdom. Harry and Meghan previously operated a small office that handled correspondence, charitable coordination, and communication with institutional channels. Even after stepping back, this office represented a continued point of contact with the monarchy. Under a streamlined model, such an office no longer aligns with the institutional framework. A review of operational units would likely lead to its closure, with staff positions reassessed and liaison functions discontinued. The process would be administrative rather than public, but its effect would be the removal of any remaining formal connection at an operational level. The absence of this office has practical consequences. It eliminates an official address for communication within the UK, reduces structured engagement with organizations previously associated with their work, and removes a direct channel to institutional coordination. Without it, any interaction with the monarchy or related entities becomes informal and external rather than integrated. This leads to a broader question about how their independent initiatives are positioned. Without a formal connection to the crown, their projects operate entirely within a private framework. The distinction between royal affiliation and independent activity becomes clearly defined, with no overlap between the two. The final and most significant shift concerns the possibility of return. Under Charles, there was a level of ambiguity that left open the idea, however uncertain, that relationships could be revisited in the future. That ambiguity functioned as a form of flexibility within the system. With a new monarch, that flexibility is reduced. Structural decisions made early in a reign tend to set long-term direction. By clarifying roles, redefining status, and removing areas of overlap, the institution establishes a consistent framework moving forward. This does not necessarily prevent personal reconciliation, but it limits the scope for institutional reintegration. The distinction is important. Personal relationships can evolve independently, but formal roles within the monarchy are defined by structure and precedent. Once those structures are set, they are not easily reversed. The broader outcome is a transition from partial association to complete separation in institutional terms. The changes discussed are not driven by a single action, but by a series of adjustments that together create a clear boundary. Titles, roles, resources, and recognition all align with this new definition. This leaves Harry and Meghan operating fully outside the institutional framework, with their public identity shaped by past association rather than current role. Their position becomes that of private individuals with a historic connection to the monarchy rather than active participants within it. The central question that remains is not about what is lost in those first 24 hours, but about how that new position evolves over time. As those first 24 hours come to an end, the picture becomes impossible to ignore. The shift is no longer quiet or technical. It is visible in every detail, from where Prince Harry stands to how Meghan Markle is addressed, from what is written in official records to what is no longer said at all. What once existed as a complicated middle ground disappears completely, replaced by something far more defined and far less forgiving. The reality is that this moment is not about a single decision or a single loss. It is the accumulation of everything happening at once. Titles shift, roles vanish, access closes, and the structure that once supported their position is no longer there. None of it needs to be announced loudly. The silence, the omissions, and the changes in protocol say enough on their own. What makes this moment stand out is how final it feels. Under King Charles III, there was always uncertainty, and with that uncertainty came possibility. There was space for interpretation, room for change, and the sense that things could evolve differently over time. With Prince William in control, that space narrows into something more fixed. This does not erase their past or their connection to the monarchy, but it redefines it in a way that is clear and difficult to reverse. The distance becomes official, not just personal. The line is no longer blurred, it is drawn. And as everything settles, the focus quietly shifts to what comes next. Because once the separation is complete, the story does not end. It simply moves into a new phase where every step forward happens without the structure that once shaped it.